Hey, this is LA from LA Show. Please find me and follow me on all of these social media platforms for more updates. You may have watched the video I did about Amiya Braxton, but Amaya's mother, Andrea Braxton, has came out with her own book to discuss her side of the story and also how she overcame this tragedy that took place in her life. I think this would be a great book for anybody who has been through any sort of grief in their life. The book was written by an author by the name of Lori L. Story and, of course, Andrea Braxton. You can purchase this book on Amazon.com. It's called God Works on Tuesdays too. Also, you can sign the petition on change.org for Amiya Braxton, or you can simply share a post to keep her name circulating. Amaya, your story has touched a lot of people, and we want justice.
And today we have a very special guest, the mother of Amaya Braxton. Um, it really touched my heart, her story and what all your family has went through. I really appreciate you coming on board, talking to me, and just letting me share your story because this stuff shouldn't happen to people, especially things like this. What was Amaya like growing up? That's one question I would like to know.
She was like gonna be my little artist. I always tell the story. She was always my little artist. She was going to be the one that I actually trained to be just like me. You know how you got that one child and you're gonna be like, this is gonna be the one to do like I do. And I can already tell that she was gonna be a caring and a caregiver. She was always mannered. She wasn't really disrespectful, but she was really stubborn and pig-headed. Like she be
Mhm.
like, I ain't gonna do that, and I'll just get a whipping for it, mom, because I ain't about to do that. You gotta do whatever you gonna do, but I ain't about to do that. So she had already started let me. I had already started seeing her character. She was gonna be a serious young woman. She was gonna be very serious, but she was also gonna be very talented. She was really gonna offer the world something that the world was missing. Amaya was going to have it.
Amen.
It's very unfortunate that she didn't get to live. So
Mm, 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 mm. So, at what age was Amaya when this situation happened to her? And could you go into depth on what took place that day? I know it's hard.
she was killed 8 days before her eighth birthday. She was 7. Um, and it happened a day after her brother's 10th birthday. He was born October the 3rd, and this happened at October the 4th. And her birthday was October the 12th. So it's what happened was, from my understanding, of course, when you're dealing with this kind of thing, you never really know the truth. You never really know the truth because nobody has really told me the truth. So I might say something, or I can try to tell you what I know about it. But then again, it might be another version to the story. Why? Because people are hiding and covering up things. So we really don't know. But from what I'm told and from what the evidence would show is that Amaya had exited her bus and she was waiting on her brother to get off. And Karen Michelle Carpenter, who is the driver of the vehicle, um, admitted on the police report that she may have dozed off. And when she maybe looked back up, instead of killing herself or hitting the bus to injure herself, she go around on the side of the bus that Amaya was standing off of. She was traveling so fast that she jumped 2 dishes and still hit and killed her.
Mm. Where were you when this took place? I know, the kids getting out of school, you probably getting off from work, or, what happened? Where were you?
Okay, so I was in the house. I was going in between jobs. At the time, I was selling insurance, and I had just left one job to go to another job. And so I was really frustrated. I'm just trying to get some stuff together. And so I was at home. I had asked my husband if he didn't mind if he would pick up my youngest son. At the time, he was 2 years old. I had asked him would he pick him up for me. And I didn't want to travel. I just wanted to relax that day. I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to be with the stress of working or anything. So I just laid down and I went to sleep. And I'm pretty much a person who's on a schedule. I pretty much know when my kids are home. I pretty much know when my kids are not home. I pretty much know where my kids are at. I make like very, 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 very sure about that because so much stuff can happen when you have a parent that's not, you know. So I was at home sleep. I had left the door unlocked. I had set the alarm clock for like 5 o'clock because normally when they come in the house, the first thing they do is go to the refrigerator. I think that's every kid when they get out of school. And they normally would come in the house, put their book bags in their room, go to the refrigerator and see what mama got cooked or if mama didn't cook or what's pulled out to cook. And then I would get up if I was at home that day, if their daddy was there. But I was at a job to where I could pretty much manage my own time. So I pretty much was always there when that bus, stopped and dropped them off. If I wasn't not right there inside the house, I was right behind the bus, maybe 2 or 3 cars from the driveway, because I know their schedules. So I was at home that day. I was asleep. I was just frustrated with some of the cases and stuff that I was working on, and I was asleep. And I remember my phone had rung like 30 something, 40 something times. It's like it was just going back to back, back to back, back to back. But it's like, wow, who is calling me? And at the time, I was on the internet. And like if you get on the internet and anytime you fill out something, it'd be all these telemarketers and they just call you all day long. So I was thinking that maybe it was one of these situations to where these telemarketers, they just will not leave me alone. And so the phone just kept ringing, kept ringing. And then I remember I was just laying there and I couldn't even move. It's like I was in a coma. It's like something, it just trips me out when I think about it now, how I couldn't even respond. I hear my phone ringing. I hear something, but I don't know what it is. But it's like I'm on that bed. And I remember it just felt like I was being pinned down. And I remember when I came to, when I was finally able to answer the phone, I was coughing, I was gagging. I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? And then when I looked at the phone, it was my husband and my daughter and my mom. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is something going on with my dad? Is something, happened to, my dad? Because I do have a daddy who's a little bit older, who is having health problems, who have been having health problems for a long time. So I thought maybe, they were calling to tell me maybe something had happened. But I knew whatever it was, for my husband to keep calling me back to back, back to back, back to back, I'm pretty sure, it was something going on. So when I answered the phone, he asked me where I was. And then I said, I'm at home. And he was like, people are calling me, telling me that Maya's been hit by a car. Now, I'm in disbelief because in my mind, I just laid down a minute ago. It ain't even been an hour, in my mind. It ain't even been an hour. But actually, it had been like 2 hours and some change. So he said, well, Maya, everybody's calling me and telling me that Maya got hit by a car. He said, I need you to find out. And then I was like, Charles, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, but Maya can't be hit by no car. I said, she didn't have a field trip today. I said, it's not even time to get out of school. So where would she be hit at the bus? And then he was like, no, 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 no. He was like, you need to go and find out where she is. And he was like, go and find out where she is. And so I didn't have any clothes on at the time because I had just woken up. And so when I pulled my blinds back, I just saw like this horrific scene outside. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm just dreaming. I'm like, I'm just dreaming. I'm just tripping. Maybe, I don't know. I was like, I don't know what's going on outside, but but this ain't real. This is a dream. I'm not about to get upset because this is just a dream. And I said, and I'm going to wake up from this dream. I said, so there's no need for me to even, but then something was like, no, this ain't no dream. You better go. So as I opened up the door, I remember people just screaming, there's her mother, there's her mother, there's her mother. And the superintendent is running up to me. The superintendent, not the police, the superintendent of the school. So what was the police doing? Because the superintendent was the one that told me, not the initial police.
Right.
So he comes up there and he was like, well, there's been an accident with little Amaya. And then I said, well, what you mean an accident? And then he said, well, she's been hit by a car. And then I said, hit by a car? And then he's like, well, I can't talk to you about that right now, Miss Braxton. He's like, well, we got to go. By the time I had made it to the door, she was already in an ambulance. I was looking for my son. I'm like, where's my son? and then they let him off the bus. So they kept him on the bus. And he's like, Mama, I kept trying to tell them that you were, I was, and they wouldn't let me come get you. And then I was like, they won't let you come get me. Then I was like, well, son, don't worry about it. So I asked one of the neighbors, I said, listen, I got to get in this ambulance. I got to follow her. I got to ride with Maya. I said, so would y'all just watch him? And so I went to the hospital and later found out she had passed. So.
Now, she had some very extensive injuries, of course, with the car hitting her going at the speeds it was going. I know it was very traumatic. What happened at the hospital? Do you want to elaborate on, what took place, or, did Karen ever go to the hospital?
That's something that I don't know. I really don't know how they handled that procedure. I do know that nobody from the police department came to see us that night or at the hospital. So we didn't know what to think. We didn't know what to do. Her injuries was very, very, very extensive. One part of her body was torn in half. We were not even able to touch her at the hospital. They told us the only thing we could do was just touch her hands. And then they was like, and so I was like, just touch her hands. I was like, I can't hug her. I can't do anything. They was like, no. That's like, if you do, they said her skin is going to start peeling off. She's going to start bleeding. They said she was, they said the car pretty much destroyed her. Even if she would have survived, she would have been a vegetable. And we wouldn't have been able to touch her still probably then, because they said that's how bad her damages was. The amazing thing is it tore her body apart on the right side. And what wasn't destroyed on the right side was destroyed on the left side. But there was not a whole lot of facial damage. Just some of her little teeth got knocked out. Unless they could have covered it up and brushed it up. But her little head was wrapped. But as far as her face and stuff, it was still pretty much intact to where you could tell it was Amaya. She didn't look like she was in pain anymore. But you can tell by looking at her that this kind of surprised her. You can kind of look at her and tell that it kind of stunned her just by how her face was. She's at the hospital and she's there laying on a table and you can't, nobody reached out from Pontotoc County at all that night. Not the district attorney's office, not the police department, nobody. We had absolutely no answers. We didn't have any answers until we made first contact with the police department the following day.
Wow. And this is all within Pontotoc County, you guys. So Pontotoc County, Mississippi has a lot of answers that need to be provided to this family to this day. And this happened a couple years ago, but still to this day, the family doesn't have the proper answers, justice, or any of that. When did you know that you and your family would have to fight for justice? What stood out to you from the beginning of the investigation that they so-called had?
Well, I kind of had an idea and a feeling that, okay, because the sheriff kept assuring us that it was a slam dunk case. I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure you see me perspiring. That's something that happens now when I get with my nerves and stuff. I just go to sweating. So just bear with me. I'll go shining, but I'll be okay. I kind of had an idea, especially when I kept calling the district attorney's office and nothing. Like I called them for like a year trying to find out who are y'all, like what's going on in the case. Nobody reached back out to me. Nobody returned my calls. I didn't even know who they were. And so I felt like we had a good relationship with the sheriff. He did make himself available to us sometime, but not all the time. Every time that we had questions Of course we could go and talk to him, but we would always get the same old answer. It was nothing new. It would be stuff like, oh, this is an open and shut case. This is an open and shut case. So we were asking him about witness. Oh, well, we don't need any witnesses, or we don't need this because this is an open and shut case. It's an open and shut case. And so we kind of went with the fact that, hey, this right here is going to be a simple conviction.
Yeah.
He did let us know that he didn't charge her on the scene because he misled us about the double jeopardy law. He literally misled us, come to find out, on purpose. And one of the reasons why he said he didn't charge her or anything, because he couldn't go up on the charges. Mm-hmm. He would just have to charge her with one thing. So we are thinking, well, we don't want her to get a misdemeanor if it's going to stop her from getting a felony. But this right here is the abuse of power. And so he abused his power and he manipulated us. And he had us thinking that he was really working on our side. Like he literally did. And so I was asking him questions. Well, who's the district attorney? Who's working on the case? And by this time he had a heart attack. And so the case, the first time it didn't get took to the grand jury. It had to wait until 6 months later because the Highway Patrol office was supposedly picking it up in his absence. But he came to me and he said, do you want me to handle this or do you want the Highway Patrol station to handle this? I said, well, Leo, I said, you have been the only one that has made somewhat contact with us. Mm-hmm. I said, so I figured that you should be the one to present the case to the jury. But come to find out that the district attorney, John Weddle, and Sadie Gardner did not allow him to present it to the grand jury. But now that's according to his words, though. So I kind of figured out that they three were playing a game. They were playing a game. We were told on scene that somebody from the district attorney's office called and said not to arrest Karen Carpenter, but to take her to the jail. So now this is per the sheriff, okay? Later we find out that there was never a call made. So.
I mean, we discussed this in the video I did about Amaya. We really got into detail about the people who so-called handled this case. So I'm glad that you did reference those people again, because it just doesn't make any sense to me that they dropped the ball like this. I know that there was another case in Mississippi with a Caucasian young boy, and he got justice, if I'm not mistaken. And it was pretty swift. And we did discuss that in the video I did about Amaya as well. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense to me. Once again, who helped you in the beginning with the Justice for Amaya campaign?
Well, there was a guy, the sheriff, and this right here is some stuff that we have gradually been putting together. So the sheriff admitted to me that he wasn't really fully aware of the law, Nathan's law. Okay, so he said, well, he wasn't really sure about the law. He really didn't know anything about the law. And so when it came back, so we found out that they were going to no-bill it, but the district attorney didn't even tell us that they didn't no-bill it. So the sheriff came out to the house and he was like, I don't understand, how this happened. This should have been open, shut. We're not going to give up. So my question was, well, why don't you charge her? I mean, like we asked him several times, why don't you charge her? Oh, well, we don't want to just charge her with this and it can be this. And so our part was, so what can we charge her with to get some jail time? And then he was like, well, basically there's nothing that you can do. We do like a misdemeanor and then she'll get out on a bail or have a fine. So I was like, well, but you can still charge her with like homicide. You can call her, you can charge her with manslaughter. You can charge her with several other things. And it didn't really click in my head that this was the plan. And so what he did was he found somebody that he normally works with a little bit. And he was my public relation person. I always call him my public relation person. But he did help me with a lot of the campaigns. he helped me get the story out there. And I'm not going to call his name for, of course, reasons. But if you see any of the earlier interviews or whatever, then you pretty much know who it is. Um, he helped with a lot of stuff. But even with that, it's like, it's kind of like they were always a step ahead of whatever
Mhm.
questions that we would mention, it's like we're coming back with a negative answer about that question and we haven't even asked you. So how
Mhm.
did you get that information? How did you get that information? So it's kind of like, I mean, you trust and you just try to have faith that everybody is for you. And this young man actually, though, have really helped us in a lot of ways. He have really helped us grant. I mean, like he organized campaigns and travel for people. We even went to Jackson. He organized that. But one thing, out of all the interviews that we've ever done, besides being at the grand jury hearing, the district attorney's office never showed up to one thing. No candlelight, no nothing. They never showed up to anything. Until this day, since this stuff has happened, they have not reached out and contacted us at all.
So basically, you know, you start with something and you have to finish it on your own.
Hmm.
Karen Carpenter is still out here driving. She didn't get any type of driving charges, and we're still stuck waiting for answers. And my audience, they took this story and it really did affect them because people don't realize that in a blink of an eye, anything can happen.
And
People don't realize it until they actually hear it or see it. And we're going to talk about what you have in store. I have a couple more questions. So, did you grow up in Mississippi?
I did, I did. And before we jump into that, I do want to reiterate this fact.
Hmm.
There's a law of Mississippi, and actually it's been passed, I believe now, in like 13 other states. It's called Nathan's Law.
Yeah.
And Nathan Law says that you cannot willfully or unwillfully pass or go within a 10 feet
Yeah.
of a stopped school bus that's
And
loading or unloading children. You cannot. If you break this rule, you're automatically guilty. This law comes from Lori McJohnson, whose son unfortunately was killed the same way. She worked very, very, very hard to get this passed. So she reached out to me, and she was like, okay, this shouldn't have happened. There's a law in place. And even herself, she even went back and forth with the district attorney about why Miss Karen Carpenter was not charged. And then this is where he kept coming up with the intent part. So you have a person who is supposed to carry out the law, right? Who apparently wasn't never going to charge Miss Karen anyway, because you have the author, the creator, the person who said, I got to do something to protect other children. You have this person telling you, hey, she's supposed to be charged under this law. This is how this law goes. How do you tell this person that actually helped get this passed, who took all these hours, how are you going to tell this person that there's a loophole in the law they helped create it, and you decide you're not going to charge?
that's something else.
You had no plans on charging anyway. So we must have to think, or there must be that you're related to her because we know you live in the same town. So you must know somebody that knows somebody, or she knows somebody that knows somebody, because in our meeting that we had with the district attorney, now this right here is after the second no true bill. After the first no true bill, we raised so much hell. We said, if we don't get a meeting, if we don't meet you, then we're going to turn up in Pontotoc. We're gonna come through here like a damn tornado, and we're gonna, excuse my language, but we're gonna shut this shit down until we get a meeting with you. And finally, with enough pressure, they gave us a meeting. And he sits there with his legs folded and looking at us like we're trash, like we're garbage. He's sitting there pretty much prejudging the situation. He was like, oh, well, if y'all can get new evidence and all that. So now it went from the Pontotoc Police Department going out, getting witnesses, doing their job. It fell on the parents, the grieving family of Amiya Braxton to go out and find our own evidence, go out there and do their job. I didn't get none of their pay. But I got to go out here, spend hours of that I don't have. We were struggling so bad, because we hadn't even worked after this happened. My husband didn't even really get a chance to finish his barber school. I mean, he had graduated barber school, and we were going to do like this big thing for him. It was going to be amazing. He had to put all that stuff on hold, so there was countless of hours that we were out here being the police. We were out here being the district attorney. We were out here doing all this stuff. Us. And then the witnesses that we finally got in contact with, there's rumors that they intimidated them, told them, well, don't talk to us because we're not the attorneys. We don't know what we're doing, but you sent me out there to get them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get into the meeting with the sheriff and have the district attorney, now this right here is after the second grand jury. And so they came back and they was like, well, we wanted to tell y'all up front, well, we wanted y'all to know first before y'all hear about it on the news. Because those news guys only want a story that they decided that they weren't going to vote on it again. So I asked him, I said, are you presenting this as a crime? And the district attorney, he told me no. He said that the jury struggled to find that she intended to kill Amaya. And this has been nobody said she intended to kill Amaya. I never thought in a million years that she got up that morning and said, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to run over Amiya Braxton at 4:30 today. I know that's not what happened, okay? I wouldn't think nobody would be that cold. However, the law says if you do this, you are guilty.
Don't blame.
So where does the intent come from? So of course they couldn't charge her with first degree murder because with first degree murder, you do have to prove intent.
Yeah.
But she admitted on the police report that she looked down or may have dozed off, then that made her negligence by her own words. You don't even have to investigate that. She told she may have fell off. I mean, she may have fell asleep or she looked down. And when she woke up, she saw a small child face. So you mean to tell me now we can get in our car and fall asleep and drive, and if I kill someone, it's just an accident because I was tired.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That should have even been negligent homicide.
No. It should have been, if they couldn't charge her with murder, then it should have been some sort of manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter, something, because her just still walking the streets, that's some type of arrogance. And that's why I wanted to ask you, you grew up in Mississippi, so you know the area well.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you leave Mississippi?
Okay, so I left Mississippi. So we've been fighting this so hard that we made it to Chicago to Rainbow Push Coalition. We made it to Reverend Jesse Jackson. And so he told us that he wanted us to come up to Chicago and talk to him. And I did like a little thing on his little thing that they do every Saturday. It was real fun. I just want to say this. I never thought in a million years that I would meet Jesse Jackson, okay? I never thought that. And when he first called me, I was on lunch break at Wendy's giving me the 4 for 4 or the 4 for 5, like the little thing they got. And his voice is like, oh my God. And he just has like, it was so amazing how they treated us and everything. But so when we got there, and, he was saying, how, they want to come to Mississippi and they want to do this and they want to do that. Well, people in Mississippi had already seen the story before we had got back home. Okay. And so I was working in an insurance office in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is about 10 or 15 minutes from where I was living at, about where the accident happened, but we had moved, but it's in the same area. So my clients start coming in there and say, sis, they was like, for real. They was like, their words. He said, these white people. He said, they looking for you. He said, they said that they didn't want that nigga coming to their town. Their town is fine the way it is. They don't need no help from that nigga. And I should let sleeping dogs lie. And so every now and then you would have different customers coming in there making certain comments. Some of them was directed at me, and then you had some of them that I knew they were just trying to warn me. It got so bad at the time, my coworker quit in the middle of the day. He said, I feel so unsafe by being here with you. She said, they're not playing with you. She said, I can be a victim just because I know you. And she and left me in that office by myself for 7 weeks. And there were days, and it's really how nonchalant people are sometimes. I was very vulnerable. I was very afraid some days. I was afraid to get in my car. And I would look up under my car. I would look in my gas cap every morning. I would check my tires to make sure they hadn't been slashed. I started losing sleep because I started walking outside at nighttime. In the middle of the night, sometime I would go and I would check up on our cars to make sure ain't nobody putting none up under there, making sure the doors is locked, making sure ain't nobody trying to break into my house. It was really a mind trip. I mean, these people, they had me on a mind trip. And Mr. Johnny Savory, who is the secretary, or you can say the right-hand person who works closely with the Rainbow Push at Reverend Jesse Jackson, I was telling him some of my concerns. And he said, well, you got to get out there. He said, we're not going to come until you leave. And then I was like, well, I appreciate that. And then because he was like, we're going to leave you in some mess if we do come. So by this time, so they were going to come, but I did ask them not to come. I asked them to let me be away. And then I asked them, is there any way that they can guarantee the safety of my family? I mean, like my mom is there. My dad is there. My husband's mom is there. His brothers and sisters live there. And it's all in close proximity. So, you know, they couldn't ensure me that. So I asked them not to come. I asked them not to, because I'm going to say this too. If somebody really has something in their heart to do, they're going to do it.
Amen.
You don't have to really ask them. And sometimes, you know, I didn't see a lot of progress in some areas. So I pretty much just took it for what it was. They did help me and my family relocate to Georgia. And I do have the privilege of being one of the first people who Reverend Jesse Jackson has ever cut a check from his personal account to make sure that me and my family is safe. So I most definitely appreciate that. And it also gave me like a little celebrity status, I guess you could truly say, like, but people don't know it's not what people think. He invited me back to his birthday party. I went last October, went to his birthday party, celebrated his birthday party with him. But that's the old days where people are so caught up in when they really marched, when they really did something, when they really made a difference. Not saying that they're not now, but what I'm saying is older. He has Parkinson's real bad, which he has openly already addressed this. So he has Parkinson's. Things are not like it used to be. And then the new lineage that's coming after him, unfortunately, in some areas, they don't have the passion as he once had. And that's something that I hope that they can work on, because there's a lot more Braxtons out there that need their help. And I hope that they will fight for them, because I know in some areas, and I'm always going to be grateful, me and my husband, always going to be grateful that they helped us get out of a very bad situation. So.
just to put this in perspective, you guys, this is Mississippi. And I think I said this in the video. Mississippi, okay? This is where a lot of good old boys and good old gals hang out, and threatening somebody, you know, that when I heard that, I I couldn't register why somebody would want to do that to you. You're a very nice, beautiful woman. But now I know why. Because it was all a game. They were all playing a game. The whole neighborhood, the whole people in the higher up areas, they were all trying to play this game and work it to their benefit.
Mm-hmm.
It's insanity.
Mm-hmm.
To the next question. So we know now that your family is still looking for some sort of help, some sort of answers, and I want to know, how can we help you? How can we help your family?
You can help my family for one just by keeping her story alive, by sharing, of course, by voicing your opinions. Just share, 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 share. That's one of the things that I always tell people: share, 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 share. There's no share. Like if you share it one time, if you share it 20 times, as long as you share and encourage your friends and stuff to share. But I'm asking people because we did have this thing to where people were calling the Pontotoc Police Department and the sheriff's office. We need to continue to call those people. We need to continue to call the district attorney's office. And at this point, I think maybe now we should start calling the FBI. We need to call the FBI and say, listen, there's some cover up going on. Anytime you get two people in the room that's supposed to be on the same side and they split in front of your face, you know there's a whole bunch of lying going on. When the district attorney, when I asked that question to the sheriff, who called you? And so the district attorney said, nobody called you from my office. So he said, if somebody called you, then tell me who it was. And then both of them paused for a second. I knew then, you better not say nothing because I know what you did. That's pretty much how this came out. You better not say nothing because I know what you did. Now this right here is the same sheriff who has did all kind of stuff in other towns. Who they say, the rumor has it, I don't know because I wasn't there, but the rumor has it that he had a baby with a 15-year-old child. I don't know, like how do these people kind of get in? How do they get in to be office? And then, Amaya was only 7 years old. She was 7 years old. Mr. Thomas was a young child. But the thing that really got me was the same district attorney that handled Amaya's case handled Mr. Thomas' case too as well. Mm-hmm. So, and the thing was that Mr. Thomas was crossing the street to get on his bus, and the driver thought it was a tractor because it was dark. Mm-hmm. Amaya was standing in her yard on her property. You mean to tell me just because she wasn't in the street that, just because she wasn't in the street that, so they were saying that if Amaya had lived first and then died, then they would have been able to charge. Makes no sense. She died because of her injuries. If there was no car passing the bus that was stopped, hit and killed her, then she wouldn't have died. So I'm asking people to share the story. If you know any of these people that has some elite, like I've come across, believe it or not even knowing, I have came across people that just has a lot that has really pushed this along some, but their help is no better than anyone else's. So don't get me wrong, but you never know who knows somebody that knows somebody. So that's why we all have to just share. There is a GoFundMe. And this right here is one thing too. Some people have, somebody started a GoFundMe campaign, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't even know who they are really. I can't even get the money.
Oh gosh.
People were starting GoFundMe in her name.
Yeah.
And have took this money and has done whatever they wanted to do with it. Mm. People have been using my name for clout. so people can write their books and stuff for them, saying that I gave them or they handled something for Amaya or handled something for me and using my name for clout. I'm not no celebrity by no means. I ain't
No.
got no clout. I'm just a grieving mom that wants justice for her daughter. And along the way, if I made a couple friends or gave myself some cool points, believe me, I worked for it.
Yeah.
Because it's easy sitting at home and knowing that you ain't got justice for your baby. And that's one thing that torments your mind sometimes. That's not easy to do. I'm not no
No.
celebrity. I just want justice for my daughter. And it's a process. If the Lord elevate me, then I'll go. But I just want justice for my daughter, bottom
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
So if you know anybody who, which I do have a couple people maybe that could be looking into a couple things, but again, when you deal with people, you deal with people. People will
Mm.
promise you a lot of things. People will tell you a lot of things you want to hear. But at the end of the day, it's really just between you and God. At
Yep.
the end of the day, it's just you and God. At the end of the day, I'm going to say this one more time. At the end of the day, it's just you and the Lord.
Yeah.
Because people will let you down and
Yes.
people will promise you stuff that they know they can't deliver you.
Oh
But
yeah.
people do that to you. So during this process, I have learned how to trust God. I really have. And along the way, I picked up some incredible people like you, Miss LA, and I have picked up some incredible people like Miss Tawana Graves. She's awesome. She handles the Justice for Amaya campaign on her page. She helps boost the change.org. And I want to encourage everybody, please go to Justice for Amaya, change.org. Please sign the petition. Please leave your comments because there are strength in numbers. And just continue to make those phone calls. Call the FBI and say, hey, there's a cover up in Mississippi. Because can't nobody make me believe that somebody ain't kin to somebody, how this woman just walked away.
I
So
know.
it's pretty impossible for that not to happen. So.
Exactly. Exactly. And I like what you touched on. You can't take everything from people. You can't try to, make people do things that they're just not going to do. You can't force it on nobody. It's just got to be in them. And I'm so grateful that me and you were able to meet each other. It's great. It's great. I know it's under hard circumstances, but things like this bring people closer, you know. So you will always be a friend of mine.
Well, thank you. You too. You too. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. So speaking of God, you wrote a book recently, and I'm ready to receive my copy. I hope
Yes.
you guys are ready to receive yours and go on to Amazon and get this book. But go ahead and tell us about the book, Miss Braxton.
Okay, so the title of the book is called God Works on Tuesdays Too. The reason why, and it is written by Miss Lori Story. She's an amazing, amazing, amazing writer, you guys. So if y'all have some stuff you want to get off your chest and you need somebody to write it for you, contact Miss Lori Story. She's from Ripley, Mississippi. I won't give her phone number out. I promise her I'll never give her phone number out to anyone. But her name is Miss Lori Story. I met her and she had never even heard of Amiya Braxton before. She didn't even know the story. So this what makes it so much impactful. And I just met her. It was at church and the spirit was there and somebody had called her out. I remember she was going to the bathroom and a man had said, Miss Lori, have you wrote another book? And then he told her to get ready for her book. And I remember I had just told my husband about 3 or 4 months, I need to be writing a book about this. And
Yeah.
so we just hooked up. We started writing maybe the 3rd of January. We wrote for 15 months.
Wow.
And voila, there's a story. But there is a lot of depth to me other than the death of Amaya. There's a lot of stuff people don't know about me. People really don't know how it feels to be really bullied by your cousins. I mean, like you see it on TV, like the little cousins be fighting and stuff. I was bullied in school. I was married to my first husband when I was 15 years old. I had a baby. I had a very hard life. He was very abusive. And so I've been through a lot of abuse in my life, a lot of neglect too. And as a child, that makes a important role in your judgment. And so I didn't let myself heal up from a lot of things. I just kept going, running. You know, before this happened to Amaya, I was suicidal sometimes. Mine just all messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew that I was supposed to be somebody special. I always knew that I had that calling. I always knew that I was that one that was going to make a difference in the world. But at the same time, you have this fragile little girl who just grew up too fast, who put herself in some bad positions. And so in this book, I want to set the record straight about some things too. You know how some people always want to judge the parent for what the child do? In every case, that's not correct. I was 15 years old, but I knew what I was doing was wrong. I made some plans to do some things, but that was only to escape neglect in my home at the time and to neglect and all that stuff that my dad was doing. I had a very terrible relationship with my dad. I had a trouble relationship with people my own age. And so I just find myself in situations even before. A lot of people don't know, but I had an auntie who was going with this guy. I will never say his name, but he took me somewhere off. I thought we was going to ride to the store, and he did something to me in the back of his car. And to this day, I have never even spoke of that. I have never even said anything. But it came out in the book. So the book tells a lot about me and about my struggles. And it also talks about Amaya too. Before Amaya died, I was suicidal somewhat all the time. But that Tuesday, when she got her wings, something in my life just changed.
Yeah.
Something, my frame of mind, aspects of me, excuse me, are stronger.
Mm.
The weaker stuff would be like, I like to smoke cigarettes, I drink a little bit, I do that a little bit, but I don't feel like I once felt 5 years ago about it. I have always been, my whole life, I've always been condemned. I've always been neglected. And it also talks about my marriage. I've been married to Amaya's father now for almost 20 years. And me and him has grew together. It talks about him being a father, a young man, just being a father. Really, this is his first serious relationship. It talks about how he has to grow up. It talks about he has to mature to take care of a wife and a child. It shows him being a terrible husband to a wonderful person who's growing. And everything, everything in the book is true. By no means, there's nothing about incidents that's happened that is made up or make believe. It is 100% everything you read in that book. It happened. It happened. And, and I expect to have some backlash because a lot of people are going to say, well, why would you stay in a marriage like that? My question is, at some point in your life, when do we really turn it over to God? I'm not telling anybody to stay in a abusive relationship. That's not what I'm saying. I would never tell anybody that. If you're in an abusive relationship, you need to go. If he's putting his hands on you, he's going to put his hands on your children. You need to go. But when you have been as broken as me, I tended to accept the things that I shouldn't have accepted. And I know that I have grew from that. And gratefully, Mr. Braxton has grew from that. He has really, really grew up. I mean, he has matured a lot in this marriage. So he has really totally did a 180, he's a 360, however you want to say it. He really has. But it does show him being a man who is somewhat spoiled. My mama, who has always had the girls, has always had anything that he wanted. Everybody serves and just do for. It kind of shows him being broke down a little bit. It kind of shows him understanding that his wife is not his slave. She's his wife to love. So it really actually does show It actually does show him growing.
Mm.
So hey, it's like a man. Like I'm so excited about God works on Tuesdays too. But Amaya died on October the 4th. It was a Tuesday about 4:30, and I'd always said that was the worst day of my life. That was worse than being raped by five grown men that who continued to, as I got older, my grandmother, my mother, knowing what they did to me, still allowed them to come around, still invited them to barbecues, still invited them to card games when I was there. Still allowed them to do this stuff. So that was above all the other stuff was one of the worst days of my life. For a long time, Tuesdays was like the worst days of the week for me. I hated Tuesdays. I was like, I wish we could just remove Tuesdays out of the days of the week. But since I've been in Atlanta, every door that has pretty much opened for me has been on a Tuesday.
Wow.
So Miss Lloyd was like, because I want to name the book Forever Young because that's actually what Amaya names means. It means forever young.
Wow.
But as I was talking to her, she was like, "Do you not realize that every great thing you got going on happens on Tuesdays for you?" So she
Right.
said, "That's what we're gonna call the book." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to call the book that." And she said, "We're gonna pray about it." And next thing you know, we came out with God Works on Tuesdays too. So I'm super excited about this book. I want people to know, no matter what you go through, just because you are wrong, just because people take advantage of us, we don't necessarily have to do the riots. We don't necessarily have to cause destruction because that's not the love of Christ either. And before I was a mother, I was a child of God. And before I am a leader in this community, I was still a child of God. I was still a person who had love for mankind in my soul. So that right there is one reason why I really haven't did some of the things that people have told me that I needed to do. I stayed away from. And there's so much stuff going on in the world, Miss LA. It don't need me throwing my fire on it. It don't need me putting my destruction on it. If anything, it needs me to put some Jesus on it. And if anybody hear this broadcast is not a Jesus fan, well, I'm sorry. You might well not even get the book. You might well don't even buy that. Because if it wasn't for his mercy and his grace, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't know, if I didn't have a connection with somebody that can keep me in my right mind. So I want everybody, please go out and buy God Works on Tuesdays too. It's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Well, we are definitely looking forward to that story. My last question, because we touched on the other two, is what can you tell women that have lost their children, or what can you offer women that are grieving, because there are a lot of women out here who are losing children rapidly.
Yes. For one, Amaya was only 7. Um, she did nothing wrong, and it's very unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you really got to keep your wits about you. I refuse to let myself stay in the bed and be depressed and be sad after this happened. Her 10-year-old brother had just watched this whole thing. Who saw
Mhm.
it from start to finish? Who knows? Then she had a 2-year-old. And then her father, who didn't have any biological kids of his own. He helped me raise my oldest daughter, and then me and him only have, I have the 3 with him. For him to lose his only blood baby girl, you know, so I had to keep myself together for my family. And I still need some counseling, and I know I do, but I have not got counseling yet. But I will be getting some counseling. I will be getting some counseling. But one thing that helped me was to know that some things are out of your control. No matter
Mhm.
how good sometimes you try to be, no matter how positive you try to be sometimes, some things are just out of your control. And so, that it's a serenity prayer. God help me to accept things that I cannot change and the wisdom to know the difference. There was nothing that I could have did that day. It doesn't matter if I was down at the store, go to Walmart, sleep, drinking, smoking, partying, playing cards. There was nothing that I could have done to prevent this accident. It was the person that was driving the vehicle who should have prevented the accident. The bus driver should have did better and avoided the accident. We can't punish ourselves about stuff that we don't have any control over. You got to know the difference. And then you got to get up and just realize they're in a much better place than you could possibly be. If you lose a small child, please believe me, they're in probably a much better place. And and as a Christian and having a spiritual mind, I told myself, I said, I would never. I remember one of the first things I said when somebody really asked me how I felt. And this is how I got to some points in a high level, I think, and I made it through a lot. I said, I love God on yesterday. On October the 3rd, I love God. I love Jesus. But on October the 4th, when he took my baby from me, I love him even more because she's rested at his bosom. She don't have to worry about the coronavirus. I don't have to worry about Maya getting sick. I don't have to worry about if Amaya's husband gonna treat her right. I don't have to worry about if she's gonna have health problems. Is she gonna be fat? Is she gonna be pretty? Is she gonna be ugly? I don't have to worry about that stuff on that end because she's okay. You know, sometimes parents leave children, lose children who are sick, and they see their child suffer. And sometimes as parents and as moms, we want to be selfish sometimes and we want to just keep the wills because we don't want to have to deal with the loss. But all loss is not a bad loss. Amaya's story was just tragic. It was because somebody was not paying attention. And of course, she paid the price. My family paid the price. But I'm so glad that Jesus, that God kept my mind. He kept my son. My son went to not even being able to sleep in a room by himself, who's constantly scared and fearful. Who at one point, if you drove by a bus or you drove to a bus or if we was approaching a bus in a car, he would go to screaming at me. I'm not even close to the bus.
Yeah.
Mama, don't go around the bus. Don't go around the bus. Stay back from the bus. Stop right here, Mama, while I'm driving. Okay. I have had people give me the bird because I have stopped so far away from that bus. That's been ridiculous. I have been into serious arguments because I couldn't get to my phone because I was driving behind the school bus. Or, and stuff like that right there. And I couldn't get to it and handle job situations and stuff like that. So to all the parents out there, you need to get the book because you need to know how to do with it. I mean, everybody don't believe in God. That's on you. That's on you. But that's what gave me my hope to be able to stand here today, not shed a tear, not miss a beat, not no anger and animosity, because anger ain't got me nowhere. And I need to get that out of me. I'm angry because I was raped at 11 years old by 5 grown men. I'm angry about that. But at the same time, I had to forgive. And I forgive Miss Carpenter. I forgive the district attorney's office. But I need them to do what they need to do. I need them to handle that business. I need her to be in jail.
Yes, yes. And I like how you finished that because that is the truth. That is what we're looking for within this interview. A lot of people have shared this story. On my Instagram account alone, it's gotten well over 500,000 people looking at it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep pushing this. This interview is going to help put a lot of things into context for people. I see Trey Songz has shared the post, Solange Knowles, Benjamin Crump, some very high profile people. Right, her Karen Carpenter, then we definitely would like, and we need help on where to go with that. You know, lawsuit, can't nobody escape that. There's no time frame on that. So we need help. And if you guys can help, by all means, send us some information. Page on Facebook, and buy the book. Help support this woman who is giving you her story on an open platter for you to judge her, for you to crucify her, but also for you to learn from her. And I'm definitely going to get the book. And I appreciate you. Oh my goodness, it just makes my heart, you know, it's been a while. We did this story. I covered this story back in January. And right now, we're in July. And I'm finally getting to talk to you and hear from you. And I go through things too. Your story is very similar to mine, having a child early, people talking about you and making you feel some type of way, and, people not knowing where to keep their hands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you, Miss Braxton. I really, really
Thank
do.
you.
I thank you, and we're going to end this. Please follow this video, follow all the platforms, subscribe to the channel, like this video so we can get around. Comment your thoughts on what you think. I know you guys will, but I will be back with more. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Bye.